This is not the first time it blew out. First time it blew out.
Oh, this isn't the first time.
No, that's the second time. Because I went and bought the camera after the first time because I knew it was going to happen again. And yeah, that's when we first laid it out there on the big blowout. When we laid in the lines, ran it all, we laid in 3 emergency lines for it, selling gas down all 3 of them, you know. I was over a mile away when we set that on fire down there. I was clear up on the road back there on the south part of the section.
How big is that flare, do you think?
In the air?
Yeah.
I don't know, 100 feet probably or something like that. But we made it look good because we made a manifold out of it, 13 3/8, and put some 4-inch stacks on it. So it was blowing out to maybe 6 stacks on there. We made it look better, you know, for that purposes there, rather than just one line out there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we had a 4.5-inch line laid out there, and run it into a bigger, maybe a 13 3/8 or something.
You can see that once the next shot's going to be kind of closer in, where you can actually see that manifold.
Yeah, and that made it more manageable and made a prettier picture.
It did. What's this flare that's shooting out the bottom kind of horizontally there?
Might have been an extra deal they had to put just in case it couldn't take it all through that other. It's been so long, I don't remember, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it could be just that. I think it was maybe an extra deal I'll go with. But the first one, when it blew out, was almost like that. But I was out there on the rig at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, around the drill pipe like this with my drilling superintendent on my shoulders, trying to open a Caddo County with a Halliburton truck down there trying to pump 15,000 pounds against it in order to get relieve enough pressure to open it. We finally got it done, and then about the time we were through, I looked over there, saw some drill pipes standing there, said tested to 9,900 pounds. And here I was hugging it, and he was on my shoulders.
And what were they pumping it down there? What kind of pressure?
Well, they were pumping 15,000 pounds back against the Caddo County.
A 9,000-pound test, huh? Good heavens.
And I didn't have enough sense. You know, I didn't know that much about that kind of pressure at that time. And I know that my drilling superintendent did, or he wouldn't have ordered a 15,000-pound truck to come out there to pump against it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, my gosh.
But it made pretty sight that way.
Oh, sure.
Jackrabbits, deer, everything run from all directions.
Yeah, this was January, from what I understand, right?
January, February, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when that was going on out there is when I bought that other lease down that I was telling you about down next to the other well that was designed to go to the hunting.
Yeah.
That unit operates now.
Yep.
The people that had that other acreage over there, they had 160 acres in there. And
now, were these spaced 640? Yeah. Okay, so if you had a $160, you're in on the unit.
Yeah, but it was in another section.
Okay.
It was in another section down where but Bear, was that it?
Bear?
It's the one that.
So you can see that manifold there.
Yeah.
And then Betamax took some pretty good video.
Yeah.
For the day, you know, you were a mile away and you were zoomed in on that flare line. Pretty good.
Yeah. But I went the next day after the first blowout and bought one. Just kept it in my trunk because I know it's going to happen again in Culpeper.
Sure.
It wasn't a month later when we were back there again, you know.
So is this the 14-2A? Is this a redrill or is this the same hole? Right, because so I was looking at the drilling reports and it was saying that you basically killed the well and went and immediately staked at a location. In fact, let me just pull that up so you can also see the.
I think it was.
Also see the scanned workbooks there.
I went. Now on that one there, we did skid the rig off of it. We left it in the air and skidded it off.
Okay.
This one here we did. The one before we didn't.
Okay, so the 14, let's just pull it up. The Tomcat 14.1, and then it has a note during the day that it blew out. Okay, so there it is. 128.81, controlling the blowout. Controlled blowout, well flowing well, hooking up the gas line.
Yeah, that's
Rig down, you know. And then it says something about at the end that you just scooted off and staked another well, like the 14.2A, another 160 over or something like that. But I'll make sure I send these to you, by the way.
This was in the southeast quarter, I think. No, wait a minute.
We could look on Petra. Southwest quarter section of 14, 10 north, 13 west.
Yeah, southwest corner was where the first one was.
Okay.
And then it wound up getting drilled in the northeast, it seems like.
Yeah, I remember, like I said, I remember seeing it in the report here.
It was probably in the northeast of the southwest where the original well was. And then I think on the final well that was completed for production was in the southwest of the northeast.
The southwest quarter of 14.
Yeah.
For the 14.1, and then the 14.1A is southwest quarter. Was the first one southwest quarter?
Yeah.
I guess it was just right over in a field or something is what it said. Maybe it was on the completion report that I read that. I can't remember.
I can't remember either. Yeah, but you can see it there now.
And that was the 6 individual
4-inch stacks on it, you know.
Okay.
Welded in.
Okay.
Just that way we control it better, make them look better for the picture because they knew I was filming it.
Mm-hmm. And this just must be when sun came up that morning.
Mm-hmm.
But still, again, gosh dang. And that, it's just incredibly loud. Oh, and see, now that you mention it,
Yeah.
that's the first. I thought that you had a big seal manifold out there that was, you know, like you're saying, 15, 16 inches or something like that. But now I see it.
Yeah.
That is okay. And then you remember in some of what the one at the ground level was, just an extra pop off or something like that.
Yeah. Something like that. I can't remember, you know.
Now in this, it's Hodges doing everything because it shows their old work. And
Yeah, it was
their
the
old trucks.
Jack Hodges truck, red.
Okay. Okay.
And we brought in 3 production units to hook up the gas line street.
And is that what I was seeing over there in
Yeah.
these facilities?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were big multi. I don't know where we got them. We got them from someplace, but we were putting in 3 lines. And then when it finally, that was before we put it in the lines.
Mm-hmm.
Still bent some out there. But the night that it quit, I left, and we had Bobby Joe Cood out there, and I left middle of the night. I came back the next day on a Friday. And when I got there, Bobby Joe came up to me and said, "Cliff done fucked it up, Jimmy." And I said, "How's that?" And he said, "Well, when you left, we were putting 78 million down the line, 75, 78 million down the lines." I went and looked at the meters myself to know for sure what.
Before you left.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
flaring the extra 10 million or whatever.
Right.
That the line couldn't take.
Right.
Okay.
And then he said, after you left, he went out there with the super trucks trying to put 100 million down the line. So that's when the shale started coming in.
Okay.
And the next day, it was, you could hear it coming down to
Crackling
watermelon. Had a watermelon down there and had some additional fault lines laid to it down there. And the shale started coming through, and idiots had run one of the flow lines the other direction from this, out the opposite direction, after they got the manifold built for it down there. And when the shale started coming in, I wasn't real close to it, but I was away from it. I heard the shale coming down, because they were coming down from up here.
Oh, no
The
kidding.
drill pipe was up here in the air.
It was through the drill pipe down,
to that manifold.
basically through the mud pumps and then hooked up to a
And
flow line.
I could hear the the shale coming in, and that we had that other 4.5-inch line laid out to the west out there in the field, and a pit out there, and then that shale stacked up. You know how stuff will stack up around the exit?
Yes.
In big pieces.
Yeah.
It pulled that 4.5-inch 1160 unedited apart. About 100, 200 foot of it, and it just shot up in the air like that.
No shit.
And lucky we weren't close to it. But they had that flow line laid underneath the drilling trailer.
Yeah.
Where they stay in.
Yeah.
And I said, before that happened, I said, get that off of there, because the ground was just iced over all the way out there, you know. And they got the trailer out of there. Otherwise than that, I don't know if it would have got it or not, but it wasn't a safe place to have it to be, you know. That was an auxiliary flow line. But when it stacked up out there, you could hear it.
So do you think it was with him messing around with the super choke? Why did it start producing the shale
because
then as opposed
cut
to...
it loose.
He just opened up the choke?
As long as you kept the back pressure
You
on
have
it.
formation, you're pushing back on the formation.
Right.
You just opened it up, and all the cavings and all the shale just
Started coming in.
right in.
Because it was flowing.
Now, is that the super
Yeah, there were
choke?
3 super chokes.
And that's one of them.
That's one of them, yeah. They'll probably show another one here someplace, but there were 3 of them there.
Okay.
And there's the production units.
Okay.
And each one of them had a super choke going into it there.
Now, did the engine, because I know this was making NGLs with that, or was that just dry gas? It was
It
probably
was-
making some liquids, no?
It was some, but not as much as it was the first time it blew out. Because the first time it blew out, we were in it was above the Mars Springer.
Like the Novi? The Atoka line?
Yeah, Toka Lime, that's what it was. That's where it blew out the first time. It was making more liquids there than it was later.
So right above it, in other words, that kind of carbonaceous facies, it goes Inola, and then the Novi that is the Atoka lime, so to speak.
It's like,
Then you've got kind of ratty shale and
right,
and
and
Mars.
they called it 13 Fingers Lime. That was right there in it, you know, but it was really the Atoka, is what it was, the Atoka shale.
Yeah.
And there's some sand stringers in there.
Oh, okay.
And that's where a lot of the liquids were coming.
Okay.
But that was in the first one.
This one didn't act the same.
This one we had casing set through it, I think.
Okay.
That's why.
You said casing and then drilled the rest of it. Yeah, smart. What 7-inch all the way down there, or probably right?
Either 7 or 7 and 5/8. I can't remember for sure.
Okay.
I think it was 7 and 5/8.
Hmm.
But we had the other part of it that was bad is that we had 9 and 5/8. The first
Surface.
time, no, we had 9 and 5/8 for intermediate strength.
Okay. But how far did you set that one on the first one? I guess
Get
above the Toka lime, I guess. I bet you used the Inola as a marker or something like that.
Yeah, I can't remember for sure, but I know that 9 and 5/8 was maybe 40 pound or 4350, and it should have been 5350. You know, bursting that tensile strength. But you know, what is it? 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But and the other thing was that. Yeah.
Who's that? Nobody in particular?
I'm trying to think.
Because that looks like an owner compared to the workers.
Yeah.
And what were they doing here with these?
I think they were
Setting up the
threaded,
billet?
and they were trying to skip the rig off of the hole.
Okay.
It's what that.
Oh, so that's what's going on here.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were, and they couldn't get close enough to it safely to try to lay it down
Okay.
or do anything, so they just were scooting it off the wellhead itself.
Okay. That was that. Dude, what is this piece of equipment right here that we just kind of zoomed in through? Just some kind of scaffolding?
Probably. I can't remember. But the problem on the first time the blowout was that it did have the intermediate. It was 9 5/8, I remember now. And it was 40-pounder, probably 4350, which was too light for what we were dealing with. But it's what he wanted to use or got or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And he told, and the drilling hand was been experienced all over the world. He worked for, I don't think it mattered, but a lot of stuff up there around Lake Michigan through the year. But Cliff made him drill out. We had 3 tanks of weighted mud on location. He made him drill out with lightweight mud out of that intermediate. And that's why it blew out in the first place.
Yeah.
And then he
So it sounds like the whole thing was underestimated.
It was really.
Yeah.
Because we were going to hunt, you know.
Yeah.
That was the whole idea. And there wasn't any Mars Springer wells around at the time, you know.
Yeah. There sure were afterward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, what's the 2 separate flames we see there?
Probably
Just other
coming
flow
out,
lines.
2 flow lines coming out of a watermelon that we'd set up in order to be able to control it. And this is, you can see that.
I hadn't noticed that huge crane in any of the times I watched. I just realized, that's a super duper skyscraper crane right there.
And that's where we kind of switched it over and got out of the drill pipe that was over. Well, the drill pipe was still standing. Well, that's where it was coming off of.
But at this point, you had kind of pulled up and you'd gotten it out of the blowout preventer or something.
Yeah.
And so how do you do that? I guess when it's flowing.
I don't think so. Because if I remember correctly, the blowout preventer was about to cut through with the shale coming through it and everything at the end of it, you know.
Okay.
And then when the shale finally came in so much, it just shut it off completely down hole.
It just ran.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that was the end. That it just kind of killed it. The DOT killed it. Interesting.
Or down hole, it's just stacked up down hole.
Yeah.
See, there was a weighted mud that was sitting there waiting to go in the hole.
Just here, just in the foreground.
Right here.
Oh, that's what those were.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was weighted mud ready to go in it. He wouldn't let him drill out so he could make more hole. Faster time. And the thing about it is, once you get through the Mars Springer, you could drill below it with 10-2 saltwater if you wanted to,
Right.
Or at least.
Well, through the Mississippian section.
Right. And into the hunt. But that's why all that heavy equipment's there.
Now, did you expect to lose return?
Now it's moving now, so you can see it moving off there.
Okay. So did you expect losses in the Mississippian on your way to the hunt? Or you could just drill on salt water and that did
our opinion, you could do it. Once you got through the Mars Springer, you could drill with any kind of mud you wanted to. Was the thought. I'm sure we wouldn't after what we had here, because we might have.
Well, I was going to say, what we know about Stack today also would say, there's kind of an overpressure.
But it was a total wildcat out there then, But that's what all the rigs and everything there and the dozers was to get it off there.
Okay.
And once you get it away, you'll be able to see drill pipe sticking up in the air and the flow line down in that mountain.
Okay, so it's still drill pipe. I remember there's a Christmas tree of sorts that you kind of cut to here in a little bit.
Right.
Okay.
Makes an interesting show, though, doesn't it? For amateur, I never had to use the camera.
Oh, man. I mean, especially those first shots and with the context of how far away you were.
Yeah.
How much was coming down the line. So in that case, that was 70 million a day.
78 million is what it was.
Wow. And that's when you left.
It was still burning out there. We estimate another 20-25 million. It was burning out there.
Wow. It's unreal. And so, but that's what we're showing here. We're showing them dragging that old lid off.
Right. And then they could disassemble it, all right, and get it off the location, Yeah. Actually, they laid it down, and then I don't know whether we moved over here. I think we moved over here on the same location, drilled another hole before they ever moved over to the other quarter section.
Really?
Yeah.
So same rig, just moved it over.
I laid it down to
where you could move it. Like,
right after the fact and check everything, And then after that, and we re-drilled it on the same location. The rig hand that was with Hodges just got married, and he was supposed to go on his honeymoon when we were finishing up the new hole with good casing and everything in it. Got the logs running, got them all out and everybody was giggly and everything. And then he was going back to bottom, clean out the hole and to cement everything. And he just rammed it in like this. We broke it down and here it come again.
Shit.
And this time when it came, there was mud every place. I don't know if you can see the mud. Probably won't see it from this picture because it was another picture, but I've got...
So is that it with the drill pipe?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I have pictures of it after we got it logged and when he was going back to bottom with it. I was in a hurry, and he was 50 years old going on his honeymoon, probably the third time he was married. I think she was younger. But
with all that, 80s oil and gas Oklahoma money right there.
Yeah. But it was just, I don't know, all the mud was back out of the hole. I know that.
Yeah.
Wonder we didn't really have some serious problems on it.
Yeah, lucked out there.
Yeah.
So what do we have happening here? So it's these are the lead lines headed out to the flare, and you've basically cut off the drill pipe, and that's just sticking out of the deal.
Well, whenever it finally shelled off, I guess they were able to remove the BOP and everything else that shelled off down hole.
Okay.
They were able to pump enough cement in it to seal it off and get everything off the hole.
Okay. Yep, so those flares still burning. That's not your partner, huh?
No, he's a short fat fucking. Yep, there he is right here. That's Cliff. Right back there.
The pointing and waving his arm?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the way top.
After fucking around with a choke all night.
Right.
Yeah, so black jacket, don't recall, huh? This whole time I figured that was the partner.
Now, Cliff had a big beer belly like me. And he was a little shorter than me, too. That's Bobby Cox up there. I don't know if you know Bobby or not. He's still working. He's working for, is there a Lindsay or that does coil tubing work and stuff? That's Cliff right there walking off.
Okay.
I wasn't in the picture much because I was doing the camera work.
No, filmer extraordinaire.
I went on to ABC or CBS or something to make some pictures of it with their deal for. They had it on national TV back then,
Did they really?
Yeah.
You sent them just the still photographs, or you sent them the video?
I just made copies of the video and let them have it.
Okay. That'd be cool to find that old story. What do we have here?
I think they're standing on it up there doing something.
Yeah.
Probably when they're fixing that flow line up there, be my guess. They just lifted up there. Yeah, I see.
Oh, I see them now. And that's the Christmas tree I was.
Right.
Now what? Okay, what? So, what do we have here? What is different now? Okay, BOP still. Drill pipe, and then they rigged up that damn thing up there to come out of?
I guess, and brought it back down.
Okay.
This was...
My favorite is to see the cars.
Yeah.
There's no single car out on location today. You know that. Right? There's not one single passenger car. All
we
pickup
drive
trucks.
right up in the middle thing and bring out steaks, all that stuff. We have barbecues out there. We left the Hilton, which is
We're in Chickasha?
No, Hilton downtown here.
Okay.
It was the Hilton at I-40 and Meridian. Now it's called the Biltmore Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
I came out of there one time with 4 Huey Ranger helicopters with people from Crab Run Gas Company and some other officials with stockbrokers and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Flew them out there to another one that was blowing out up where you're going to be, up further north by
Verdon? Or
Yeah.
by Chickasha and Verdon?
No. North of there. Along the Canadian River up there.
Shit.
Anyway, we went to there and it was blowing out, and then we took them down there and had Leo's barbecue set up down there for a big barbecue. Took them to Sheplers and bought them all cowboy boots and hats and all that shit. Entertained, you know.
Wow. I mean,
But
it's really the
I
peak.
told the pilots, I said, let's fly treetop down there just like you're going to attack somebody or something. And they were all military ex-pilots, you know.
Uh-huh.
So we had a hell of a show for them.
That's awesome. Wow.
And we landed and took off right there between I-40 and the hotel where the tennis court is out there now.
Really?
Yeah,
What was it? Just a blank spot there?
yeah.
Just like parking lot?
Well, the parking lot, it was just a field
Sure.
there between the hotel and the fence. But the tennis court there now wasn't there then, you know.
We going?
And then Gleff's had a helicopter of his own, a Ranger, that 4-passenger, 6-passenger, I guess it was. And one time we flew it to Stillwater to the OU OSU game. He was a big OU person. We were OSU. He was OU person. We were OSU person. Landed up there, and we said we had the governor in there with us, so they let us land on the baseball field. And then after the game, we came back, and we landed down.
Back at the Hilton?
No, we landed in the center island out by the oil center and went to juniors. And then the pilot took the thing on back and got some people, brought our cars over there to us to go home after the deal was over with. And we went one time to Norman, flew around Owen Field and landed out there and went to the game.
Went to the game.
Yeah,
Man, those are the days.
crazy day.
Early 80s. Wow.
Work for it. Don't be crazy. And work for your money.